Good evening, viewers and listeners. I welcome you to the Kalik Mutima podcast. My name is Maxwell Ochaya, and I'll be your moderator today. And I'll be assisted by Mr. Alfred Muyaka. Our main discussion today shall focus on the events that transpired during UNAA, the different discussions by the different stakeholders at UNAA. And we are pleased today to have the Chief Executive Partner of Kalik Mutima and Company Advocates, who shall be throwing more lights on the discussions regarding land fraud and land grabbing in Uganda. And these discussions happened on the 2nd of September at Texas, Dallas. Without further much ado, allow me welcome the Chief Executive Partner of Kalik Mutima and Company Advocates, Mr. Kalik Mutima Deo, to say hello to the viewers and listeners. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Maxwell. To our dear viewers and listeners, greetings. I know for some of you it is good evening, some good night, some good afternoon, good morning. It's good to be here. I would like to thank Maxwell and the team at Kalik Mutima and Company Advocates for making this possible. More importantly, I would like to thank the UNAA membership and leadership for the good partnership and working relationship that we have had over the years. And we look forward to a continued working relationship with you. We thank God that we were able to have the first land forum, and we pray and believe that we shall have many more. And we also pray and believe that they will be impactful. We don't believe in dialogue that has no relevance. Allow me and the team to briefly recap what I shared at the land forum. I did touch a couple of aspects, but mainly 4 or 5. 1, the need for information. 2, the need for an elaborate or detailed due diligence. I also discussed compliance, why we should be compliant in our transactions. And lastly, I touched the issue of sustainability. Today, allow me start with sustainability. We are living in the wake of global warming. We are living in the wake of climate change. There is an urgent need for continuity. We need to revise the way we live. We need to revise the way we handle our transactions, our activities in regard to the environment. That change begins with you, not with the government. That change, it is incumbent upon each one of us as citizens, wherever we are, to safeguard the environment. Land use and land management greatly touch environmental issues. They do impact greatly on environmental sustainability. While I was with you, I explained that in the 19th and 20th centuries, we had theories that cropped up. Some even predicted that humanity would be extinct unless birth rates were checked. Others proposed that with increased technology, we would have more production, hence the need for continuity. I'll give you an example of Uganda. I think as of today, we are about 48.7 million Ugandans. We are, I should thank God, very fertile people. I think every year on average we produce not less than, in millions, not less than 1.5 million. But the land is not increasing. The land is not. But we must ensure we have that continuity. We must ensure we have sustainability. We must ensure that we safeguard the environment, that we protect the forests, that we protect the wetlands. I know some people were offended when I referred to them as frogs, monkeys, and snakes, but let's cut the chase here. All I know is that forests are meant for monkeys, chimpanzees, and gorillas and baboons, not for permanent development and human activities. Wetlands are meant for frogs and snakes, not for human beings. As I speak in Kampala, it is raining very heavily. We are having floods. And many people are wondering, why are we having floods? What is happening? It's not magic. Certain things were not done right. We have a physical planning board. We have Ministry of Lands. We have technocrats working. I do not work there, so I will not speak for them. I know they are supposed to do their work. But I believe somewhere something didn't go right. And we are not here to do a blame game. No. We are saying the duty begins with you. Do not buy land in a wetland. You're not a frog or a snake. Do not build in a wetland. Do not cut down a forest and construct there. I know we are saying land is not increasing, but we have more modern ways of development. We have condominiums. You can build upwards. You don't need the whole world to expand. You can build upwards. This is all we are asking you to do. Like I indicated, land use does affect the environment. We have been hearing about the complex notion of global warming and climate change. Once carbon dioxide is emitted, it is trapped as heat. It results in global warming. We have floods, the Philippines flooding, we have Singapore flooding, Libya. It is going out of control. But it is not too late. It is incumbent upon every human being, and yes, every Ugandan, to do their part. I will actually request my team to allow us have a specific session on sustainability, because it is a very touching subject. And for you who I called frogs, monkeys, and snakes, baboons, because that is what those gazetted areas are meant for, I'm not sorry. I appeal to you to have a change. You have a duty towards yourself. You have a duty towards your country. You have a duty towards your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. For their sake, for future generations, we must ensure continuity. Now, I'll talk about the issue of due diligence. In today's Daily Monitor, headline front page, land grabbing. Yes, land is a problem. And I pray to God that it stops one day. I will still maintain that the duty is not just on government, but it is on each one of us. Those of you who go and grab land, I will not speak in all scenarios, but I'm very sure it is not government of Uganda that sends you, and I'm not speaking on behalf of government, I'm using simple logic and common sense. It is not the government of Uganda that sends you to grab people's land. Before you acquire any piece of land, you must carry out elaborate due diligence. In the past, many people would run to the land office, carry out a search statement. And in their opinion, that would be due diligence. No, it is not. If you read that search statement at the bottom, at I think the second last paragraph, there is a disclaimer. We do not guarantee 100% the authenticity of this information. There's a reason why that disclaimer is there. We appeal to you to carry out detailed, thorough, elaborate due diligence. I did quickly take you through some steps. Allow me re-echo them. And we also have categories. If you're buying estate land of a deceased person, the level of due diligence is very different if you're buying land from Deo. If you're buying land from a company, the level of due diligence is different. If you're buying land from a donee, a holder of powers of attorney, the extent is also different. You need to know what to do in each of those circumstances. I'll touch the basic one first. Let's assume you're buying land from Deo. I do not sell land anyway, so it's just a hypothetical. One, fine, you can carry out your search. But even before you do that, one, engage a professional. I encourage every Ugandan out there to deal with professionals. It is safer to do so. Engage a professional to handle the transaction for you. And as far as land is concerned, I'm talking about advocates, registered surveyors, registered valuers. We also have registered engineers when you're going into the construction bit. We'll have feature sessions where we delve into each of these components. So the advocate will have a work plan and a budget for you, a strategy. One, they will carry out the search. Two, they will engage a surveyor, a registered surveyor, to go to the ground. Please do not buy land anymore without sending registered surveyors to the ground. To ascertain the boundaries of the land, to ascertain the acreage of the land, to engage with the local authorities. In today's paper, colleagues were recommending that. Yes, I do agree, but I must also add that the LCs in Uganda are not permanent. They change over time. So I would also encourage you to engage the neighbors. Now, once you have your search report, you have an elaborate survey report, you go to the transaction itself, the paperwork. A competent lawyer will know what to do. And please, I insist, pay through the bank. Do not handle cash transactions anymore. It is not safe to do so. Paying through the bank does give you a trail. It gives you a trail. Interestingly, many fraudsters today shy away. So this is also a remedy proposed. They shy away from bank transactions. Now, once the payment is made, title has been handed over to you, the transfer form and the supporting documents. Please ensure that you transfer that title into your name immediately. I know land is an important asset. Like a wise judge once said, land is an asset, not a vegetable whose sellers are unknown. But I want to assure you that I know the people who sell me vegetables because I'm keen. I have dietary concerns. So if you can be keen about vegetables, you should be keen about land because it is a very important aspect. We will also have a very detailed discussion touching the advantages of owning land and the advantages of doing the right due diligence or acquiring land the right way. All the buildings you see now are on land. It is that important. Very key. So we must treat it as a treasure. I'll quickly touch the issue of estate land, special certificates of title, powers of attorney, land bought from companies. Let me start with the estate land. When a person dies, the law is settled and very clear. The Succession Act was recently amended. The Succession Act of Uganda, of the Republic of Uganda. For the sake of this discussion, I'll not go so much into legalese. However, when a person dies, you must appoint a legal representative. And here I do not mean a lawyer. Someone to act on behalf of the estate, to act on behalf of the affairs of the estate. This person is either an administrator or an executor. Where a person dies intestate without leaving a will, an administrator shall be appointed to act on behalf of the estate. Where a person leaves a will, then the executors shall implement the wishes of the deceased person. This is not necessarily to treat the estate as a going concern, but to deal with the affairs of the deceased person. Distribute the estate, file an inventory in court, basically detailing the distribution of the estate, and filing an accountability court, The law is very clear, 6 months, 12 months. If you do not do so as an administrator, those letters of administration will be revoked. If you have been given letters of administration today, after 2 years, if you've decided to treat the estate as your personal property, the letters will be revoked. So what do you do if you're dealing with an estate? Like I said, a search certificate is not enough anymore. You must dig up the whole process from the death certificate. Confirm, yes, there's a person who died. They proceeded, opened up a file with the Administrator General, that is if a person died intestate. The necessary meetings were held. Certificate of no objection. The Administrator General should not object. Where the Administrator General has reason to object, they do not issue the certificate of no objection. Now, once that is done, that is when we proceed to court, file the petition, identification is done. Identification, you take the beneficiaries to court and the nominated administrator or administrators, they are identified by court. The process now is very rigorous in light of the fact that we are living in the age of fraud. Once court is satisfied, then a grant will be issued to the administrator or to the executor. The process for execution is a bit shorter where there is a will, but you must verify. You must verify and be sure that you're dealing with the right person. Many times people ask, but why should I waste my time? And I ask them in turn, why should you lose your money? Because if you do not do this detailed due diligence, you are going to lose your money. Many people shy away from professional fees and end up dealing with relatives. I have nothing against your relatives. I have very many relatives too. But when I'm doing transactions, I deal with professionals for accountability purposes. Go through that process, ensure that it all checks up, then you can transact. You recall a few seconds ago, I told you these letters of administration can be revoked by court. So you may deal with an administrator whose grant has been revoked. And there are so many grounds for revocation. That is why you need to be sure. In the interest of time, I'll quickly go to powers of attorney. The law does allow X to give powers of attorney to Y to act on their behalf. Dealings in land, transfer, and all that. But I appeal to you to verify. And I must note that if a person X gives Y powers of attorney and they die, the powers of attorney die with them. That would mean that where there are powers of attorney, the donor must be alive. Please verify. Even if they deceive you that the person is in the diaspora, do a live video call to be sure. It is not safe to transact where there are powers of attorney. I'll quickly go to special certificates of title. Our laws of the land, to be specific, the Registration of Titles Act, does allow a registered proprietor to apply for a special certificate of title where they have lost their original title. I will note that titles are issued in duplicate. For my law, which is akin to Buganda, we have the white page and the owner's copy, which is called the duplicate certificate of title. If you lose your title and you have grounds to apply for a special certificate, the Office of Titles can grant it if they are satisfied. If the facts declared in your statutory declaration are convincing, they will issue you a certificate of title. This is another area that has been grossly abused. We have scenarios where X has his or her duplicate certificate of title. They'll keep it, or even pledge it as collateral, as security, to borrow money. Then they go to the land office, apply for a special certificate of title, indicating that their original is lost. And they will deal with the special certificate of title. So I appeal to you that where there are special certificates of title, before you proceed with your transaction, kindly be extra keen. I'm not saying that it is illegal or irregular to have a special certificate of title. What I'm saying is that this area has been grossly abused and you should be extra careful. For companies, one, a company can have both a local and foreign component. How? If the shareholding is Ugandan, at least 51%, the majority shareholding is Ugandan. That is a Ugandan company for all intents and purposes. If it is foreign, 51%, that is a foreign company. Now, if it is a foreign company, it cannot own permanent interests in land, just like individuals. It cannot own a freehold interest. It cannot own a Milo interest. It is limited to a lease. Now, if you have a scenario where a company whose controlling interest is vested in foreigners, and they are purportedly dealing in permanent interests, that is Milo and freehold, kindly be extra careful. You may want to examine those documents further. I must quickly note that the controlling interest may change where shareholders live. Those are exceptions. But I appeal to you to be as keen as you can be. With due diligence, we can go on and on. But in the interest of time, again, I appeal to you to be as keen as you can be. Many a times our brothers and sisters in the diaspora come to Uganda for 2 weeks. I appeal to you to be very careful with those very hot, very juicy, quick deals. Those quick deals are very dangerous. Those that you can't do in one day without clear guidance of professionals, or because you feel professionals are very expensive, you do not want to pay. Some professionals charge as low as 500,000. You do not want to pay 500,000 because you feel it's a lot of money, yet you're willing to invest 1 billion Uganda shillings. You are going to lose that 1 billion because you do not want to pay fees. I'll now quickly touch the aspect of compliance. At the forum, I did talk about leases. You may wonder why. Why leases? Because all these other interests, even the permanent ones, have compliance issues. Have the necessary fees been paid? I remember in San Francisco, I was touched by a story from a lady who was complaining that the government of Uganda is very unfair. The stamp duty for land is 10%. And I asked her what she was talking about. Said, Council, no, the stamp duty to transfer land in Uganda is 10%. I said, no. That's why I talked about the need for information. Because you're not informed, or because you get half-baked information, you're taken advantage of. Now, for leases in specific, a lease is a contract for a fixed period of time. It is not permanent. I can give you a lease out of Milo for a certain period of time. Now, those are usually a bit okay. The challenge that we have noted, and this is my humble opinion, is with the controlling authorities. Uganda Land Commission, the district land boards, the kingdom land boards. They will give you that lease, they will give you that contract for a fixed period of time. But you must note that the contract has terms and conditions that you should comply with. You must pay the premium, you must pay the ground rent. You must comply with the development covenants. You must develop that property to standard, get an approved plan. Where you do not, people are ready to pounce and take advantage. People are ready to pounce. We have scenarios where people unfortunately are given leases, say from the diaspora or anywhere, 5 years, fence off the land or not, they do not develop the property, fly back, go about their business. After 5 years, the lease expires. Now, when a lease expires, because it is from a controlling authority, one that has mandate over that land, the lease reverts back to the controlling authority. That means they will exercise their discretion to give it to the next applicant. That is why I appealed to you, and I reiterate the same here. Please comply with the terms of the lease. Please be guided by a professional. Now, in the interest of time, I will stop here. If we have any questions coming through, I believe this is the time to take them. If there are none, we shall still continue with the next part of our discussion. Thank you so much. Back to the team.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kalikumtima Deo, for the elaborate discussion you have just given us. And my take home in this discussion is that always engage registered professionals, surveyors, lawyers, not just professionals. Ensure they are registered, because any report by a surveyor who is not registered can never be used as evidence to back up your case in case anything backfires. Now, you earlier on talked about the aspect of sustainability and climate change in all this in regards to land use. Kindly elaborate further on what are some of these cases of, land mismanagement and land misuse that have highly contributed, to the climate change that we are seeing today. You earlier talked about floods in Kampala. What are some of these activities that have led to, flooding and climate change, and how can this be addressed? But before Mr. Kalikumtima Deo comes back, I would love to inform you that this show shall be on for an hour, and we shall use 40 minutes. We shall use 40 minutes for the presentations and discussions in studios, and we shall give you 20 minutes for your questions, and which he shall respond to them accordingly. Going back, what are some of these, land uses or misuses that have contributed, to climate change and the floodings that you talked about in Kampala and other parts of the world, and how can this be addressed?
Thank you so much, Maxwell. I'll start with the issue of deforestation. I did talk about carbon dioxide emissions. Once carbon dioxide is emitted and it is trapped in the atmosphere, there is heat. This heat results in global warming and thereby translates into climate change. We have been seeing floods all over the world. We have floods in the Philippines, we have floods in Libya, we have floods in Singapore. Now, this is an area that is giving us a challenge. Even in Uganda, we have many forests today that are being cut down for development purposes. I did indicate that land does not increase in size. Yes, it does appreciate in value. Land is actually the only asset that does not depreciate. It does appreciate in value, but it does not expand. It's not dull. Okay? However, we have advanced globally and as a country. Today we have condominiums. Why cut down a whole forest? Yet you can get what is available and use it adequately. That is the sustainability that we are talking about. The generation today should be in position to use the resources at its disposal or at their disposal reasonably, bearing in mind that we have future generations to come. It's time to have a real discussion. It's time to take deliberate measures. We should think not just about ourselves. We should think about our children. We should think about our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. Leave the forests alone. Now, once you cut down these forests, they will surely contribute to the carbon footprint, like I told you. I know they also capture the carbon dioxide. That's why today you will hear so many discussions about carbon credits, carbon trading. This is very good. We shall also have a specific session on carbon credits and carbon trading. But if you cut down the forest, you have the emissions out there, which is very, very risky. If you go to that wetland and you develop in the wetland, the result is the flooding that you're seeing. There are actually, some people do not know that there were wetlands at one time in the city here. I will not give examples because this is not about politics. But we know it is a reality that some parts of the city where you walk, it was either a forest or a wetland. Now, we have a physical planning board and a ministry that guides on that. I'm not going to speak on their behalf. We have capital city authority that does their work. I'm not going to speak on their behalf. I'm speaking as a green advocate. We as a firm stand for green advocacy. It is time for change. The change begins with us. If you build in that wetland, if you build in a green belt, you're taking that away. We have gazetted industrial parks. These are planned, but you find encroachers going in there and building in the reserves. Then tomorrow someone is going to ask, why are we having floods? Why are we having floods? It is not rocket science. It is not.
Someone built in wetlands.
Someone made a mistake somewhere. A regulator did not do their part. An individual was selfish and decided to develop in a wetland. But this is not about a blame game. Pointing fingers is not going to help. I must also quickly add that it is not water under the bridge, because it is a reality that is still with us. This is a discussion that we must have. I thank the media. The New Vision has a campaign on green schools. Efforts are being made. So this is a discussion that must continue. Our firm and other organizations talk about going green. We must not just talk about it. We must walk the talk. I'm a Rotarian. We have the Mission Green campaign where we plant trees. That is leading by example. That change begins with you. Do not cut down the forest. Do not build in the wetland. If you do not build in the wetland, the advantage is the floods are going to reduce. The necessary authorities know what to do on their part. I believe if they do it, the floods are going to reduce. In my humble opinion, it is not rocket science. It is not. We must take the necessary deliberate steps. The wetlands, not aside the development, they have really been tampered with. If you look at garbage disposal, for example, waste is being dumped there. You have this waste decomposing. We have bacteria in there. What you get as a result from the bacteria, this occurs organically or genetically. I'm not a scientist, but it's simple logic and common sense. This also leads to the emissions that I've been talking about. The carbon dioxide emissions, methane, nitrogen. They will be emitted, heat is trapped, global warming, climate change. Suddenly, climate changes, the weather conditions change. What do we do? It is time to act now.
True. Alfred, you have heard for yourself.
Yes.
Stop building in wetlands. Stop constructing in wetlands.
Yes.
Very elaborate discussion here. I understand you have a few things to add on and some questions, please.
Just still focusing on the wetlands. So for those who are built in the wetlands, what's there for them? What's the consequence of building in wetlands?
Now, I would like to quickly note, and like I told you, I will not go so much into legalese. This shouldn't be complex. We have NEMA, the authority charged that has mandate over wetlands. It was introduced by statute. Now, those who were lucky and built in wetlands before its existence,
Yes.
they will have an argument. And indeed, they have been saying, no, NEMA was not there, the law was not there, there was no regulation. That's why I'm saying, fine. There was no NEMA, there was no regulation. But you as a citizen, before you point fingers at, so government has not done this, you as a citizen, what have you done? We have a duty. So, You can argue all you want,
Yes.
and you may actually go to court and win, because the regulator was not there, the law was not.
Yes.
But as a citizen, for your sake, for the sake of your lineage, you have a duty. But for those who developed after the authority was established, and to be precise, of course, it was established by statute. After the statute came into place,
Yes.
there's a big challenge. And indeed, NEMA has been acting. They have applied to Ministry of Lands, to the Commissioner Land Registration.
Yes.
The Commissioner, the office of the Commissioner Land Registration, the title's office, made deliberate steps. I will not speak on their behalf, but it was all over the media. A notice was issued for titles to be cancelled. These are titles that were created in wetlands. A public hearing was convened. It was all over the media. And I believe over time, several titles have been cancelled. And if you go to the ministry website, you will see that even more titles will be cancelled, because the ministry seems to be making deliberate steps to ensure that we don't have more titles in forest reserves and wetlands. And I believe, with the permission of the farm, in our next sessions we shall invite officials from Ministry of Lands to speak on their behalf. But necessary steps are being taken. The authority is not asleep. Titles are being cancelled. This is my opinion. Can they do better? Yes, they can do. I say this is not about pointing fingers, but in my opinion, they can do a lot better. They will tell you they have their limitations: manpower, logistics. They have environmental police. They may not have enough cars. Maybe, since we are talking about deliberate steps on the part of individuals, I'm sure government of Uganda is also aware that there is urgent need to have deliberate steps on their part. I'm sure that is why the authority now is taking drastic measures. Recently, the President of the Republic of Uganda, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, I believe while addressing cabinet, was very candid on the issue of wetlands. This was in the media. I think the Prime Minister also subsequently came out. So efforts, I believe, are being made and will be made to check this. Am I saying that it is being done perfectly? No. Am I speaking on behalf of government? No. Am I saying that we can and should do better? Yes, we should. This is a reality that is with us. It is upon us. You can either play hide and seek or face the reality. Take it head on, deal with it. Yeah.
So taking away the conversation from sustainability to now due diligence in land matters. So when you're doing due diligence, you talked of conducting a title search and maybe conducting a survey. So how does a person who is Ugandan who is abroad and would want to transact in some land conduct a title search? And what consequences does he face if he doesn't conduct a survey before buying the land he wants to buy?
Now, it is very important that Alfred is bringing up the issue of consequence. Today I spoke or talked to a very wise man. I'll not mention the name here, but it was a very good discussion. Life has its consequences, and we cannot run away from consequences. So I'm glad that you're bringing the issue of consequence here. If you carry out an elaborate due diligence, the consequence is, or the result is, that you're going to mitigate the fraud that we are talking about. You will surely mitigate it in the very least, or avoid it entirely. And how do you do it? You do it through a professional. Engage an advocate. We have Law Council of Uganda that regulates us as advocates. If I mess up anywhere, you take me to Law Council. You have a fallback position. As a firm, or I'm sure I will not speak on behalf of other firms, but a number of firms today, not all, but some, do have professional indemnity.
True.
So if there is any sort of negligence, you can call in the PI, the professional indemnity, the cover. So there's that component of accountability that you must address yourself to, that is very necessary. Similarly, for registered surveyors, they have a board. They have a whole board that regulates them, the Surveyors Registration Board. They are accountable to the board. So if you engage a registered surveyor and they mess up, there is a fallback position. It is not mandatory that you must engage a surveyor when you're going to buy land. At least I have not seen it in any law. However, in as much as it is not mandatory, it is very necessary. And that statement is not in any way to contradict the point that I'm making. It is necessary. You need to know what you're dealing with. We have scenarios where the land, the parcel, the land on the title, the acreage, is not commensurate with the size on the ground. So how do you deal with that? Conducting a search is not enough. You have to engage the surveyor to go to the ground, to ascertain the boundaries, to ascertain the acreage. The Baganda say take a cent of water, but you need to get value for your money. What are you buying? Even if I was buying a donut, I need to look at the size and be sure this is worth $1. So what are you buying? That is why you need to engage these surveyors. Why did I talk about valuers? We have our dear brothers and sisters coming in for 2 weeks. They will buy a building in a day or two, or a week. They will buy a property worth 100 Uganda million shillings at 500 million. Now, as an attorney, as a lawyer, as an advocate, I'm not a valuer. I may have experience in land matters, but you need to engage a valuer. Get a report about the value. In case you're cheated, you have a fallback position. And this valuer should be a registered valuer. I talked about condominiums today. These latest developments. Engage a quantity surveyor, depending on the size of project. If you're going to invest $1 million here and you're not willing to engage a professional, you have a problem. And I want to assure you, you have a very special problem. It is not a small one. You must engage professionals. Why on earth are you going to spend $1 million on a project that you're going to have for so many years, and you don't want to engage professionals? Engage a quantity surveyor. Let them come to the ground, analyze. They know what they are supposed to do. Engage a civil engineer. Let them assess the structural integrity of this building. 2 weeks, back on the plane. After 1 year, there are cracks. 3rd year, building down. Boom! Building collapses in Kampala. First thing, the government of Uganda is bad. My neighbors believe in witchcraft. But my relatives are bad. What did you do? So when we talk about caution, we mean every word, every letter of the word.
So as part of due diligence, after you have bought your land in peace, you talked about having it transferred into your name. So what would that now require to have my land transferred into my name? Depending on from if I bought it from a company, from an individual person, I think we would break it in bits, depending on where I bought it from.
Before Council Dale comes back to answer the question posed by Mr. Muyaka Alfred, to our viewers and listeners, please do send in your questions via the chat option, and we shall be ready to respond to them as the show goes on. Please send in your questions, send in your queries, and any concerns you have, any comments, please bring them coming through the chat option. So we may proceed.
Thank you so much, Alfred. To do a transfer for an individual, now you have done the transaction, you did the due diligence and everything, and you are given all the documents. Ensure that you receive all the documents, because we have scenarios where vendors, sellers become funny, become difficult. They will give you a title, transfer form, fill it in, sign the consent to transfer. Then they will not attach a passport photo. They will not attach an ID. And they will keep quiet. You go back to ask for the same, they ask you for more money. So at the transaction itself, you should have been keen. So let's assume that you were keen enough.
Yes.
Now you have your original certificate of title, the transfer form, the consent to transfer. This is used for valuation purposes by the government valuer. Please note that on transfer of land, you must pay statutory fees. These statutory fees include the stamp duty and the registration fees. Now, the consent to transfer is used for valuation purposes for stamp duty. The details of the land are clearly filled in, the consideration, the amount that you paid. These documents, at a certain stage that I will allude to, are lodged in to the title office, and they will be assessed by the government valuer. He will endorse on that part. So you should have that form attached. You must have passport size photos for the transferor and the transferee. That is the vendor or the person selling and the person buying. You must have copies of their national ID. The law today is very clear. Since the inception of NIRA, NIRA is the authority responsible for issuance of national IDs, death and birth certificates. It is mandatory under that law that for all transactions you must attach a national ID. It is unfortunate that these also are forged, but luckily enough, as you note on the Ministry of Lands website, when you have time, kindly go there. The Ministry of Lands system is linked to NIRA system, so they are able to verify. So these national IDs are attached. We are dealing with an individual. If it is an estate of a deceased person, after you have done your elaborate due diligence, what I will add is that the administrator must have transferred the land to a beneficiary. That means they file the inventory account, the beneficiaries consented, the other beneficiaries must consent. They consented, the documents are in order. So you will attach on the transfer from administrator to beneficiary, you attach the certified letters of administration. But now we are assuming that all that was done. You've done the necessary verification. You can attach the consent for the beneficiaries to this particular beneficiary. If it is a company, the transfer form should be signed by at least 2 directors, or a director and the company secretary, and it must have the company seal. Please note that a stamp is not a seal. I believe, Alfred, you'll demonstrate what is. No, you cannot demonstrate what it is. You will show our viewers and listeners, not the listeners, the viewers, what the seal is. So you have the director's sign, you have the seal on, you have the resolution. The company must have sat in a meeting and resolved to dispose of this asset. That resolution is proof, and it must be a registered resolution. Registered with Uganda Registration Services Bureau. I know in future we'll also have sessions where we talk about the mandate of Uganda Registration Services Bureau. Now, if the company has a local controlling interest and they are transferring a Milo title to you, usually the land office will require the memorandum and articles of association. So you must furnish copies of certified copies. So those must be attached. So you realize with the different levels, the documents change slightly. That is why you need an advocate to guide you through. Now, I know at some point you're going to ask, I will not preempt you, you're going to ask about powers of attorney. I don't like talking about those ones because they are honestly greatly abused. But okay, the power of attorney must be registered. Of course, you have done the necessary verification. It must be registered, attached to the transfer form, You still have the passport photos. You have copies of the national ID. Yeah.
Then the land sale agreement,
Oh.
is it a requirement, just for clarity to the viewers and listeners, is it a requirement for you to be registered with your RSB, or can just attach it?
Out of prudence,
Yes.
It is necessary for you to register the agreement with URSB.
Yes, yes.
If at any point X, this transaction becomes questionable, you need this agreement for evidential what? Purposes. Like, I believe Maxwell alluded to that. Yeah. And secondly, I believe last year, the Stamps Act was amended. We now have a nominal fee, stamp duty, a nominal duty on agreements, 15,000. So for every transfer, you must pay that fee. So yes, you need the sale agreement.
Be registered.
Yeah, you need it registered and you need to attach it.
Thank you so much, viewers. You have heard for yourselves. Forewarned, forearmed. And my take home from here is ensure the beneficiaries of an estate consent to the transfer before it's done. If not, such a transaction will be invalid. And always when buying land from a company, ensure there's a registered resolution authorizing that company to proceed with the sale of that particular land. Now, we have a question here from Mr. Rafes Holmes, and he asks, do you know when the land app will be rolled out? I don't have much information about this. Maybe Councillor Deo, if you have any information regarding the land app.
Now, I'm trying to avoid as much as possible speaking on behalf of Ministry of Lands. But for the team that was at the Land Forum, I believe my brother Lenin did inform the forum that Ministry of Lands has a portal. I cannot call it an app. They have a portal, and this portal will enable all Ugandans do real-time searches in regard to their properties. I believe, in my opinion, it is still in process, but all this information is available on the Ministry of Lands website. So it is a portal, not an app, that is in process. But this is where we are heading. It is inevitable. I believe very soon we shall have this, or in the foreseeable future, we shall have this portal up and running, which will enable even my diaspora family do real-time searches, ascertain the status of their properties. Allow me use the opportunity to emphasize that do not carry out searches only when you're going to transact. Check in. You don't lose anything. Check in. If you have a nice car, you check in, make sure it's okay. Now, I told you land is a treasure. I did point out that land is an asset. Do the search. You may not do it every day or every month, at least once or twice a year. Check in. So I believe with this portal, it will be a lot easier.
Now, as we're talking of, we have gained on diligence now, the person has really owned this land, it is in his names, in his own names. So I believe the diligence doesn't stop at that stage. So now that I own the land, how can I protect it from being grabbed? Or what due diligence should I do after it? Now I own the land, it's my names. Should I just leave that now that is done? Or
now, immediately after the transaction, two things must happen urgently. One, you must transfer the property into your name. Two, you must immediately take possession.
yes.
And by possession, I mean actual, not just constructive. You see, even transferring the title, and now the title is in your name, is legal possession. I mean the actual possession on the ground. You must have meaningful activities on your ground. Today, if you see many of the stories, there's a sequence. Most of these land grabbers look out for vacant land. I do not even want to give examples because they are matters that I'm handling, doing my best to help their victims. Some of them have even been in the news, where these grabbers looked out for vacant land. So please immediately take possession of your land. Active possession. Fence it off. Have a structure on the land. Not just a washroom or a toilet. A meaningful structure, at least storage and a room, then have security there. In all this, I maintain and will emphasize till the end that land is an asset. Land is a treasure. We must guard it jealously. Imagine you have gold. You're not just going to expose it and put it there, lay it bare. No. You must safeguard it. And keep checking in. Keep checking in. With this, at least you will keep more than 50% of the land grabbers away. I will also emphasize that we have categories of land grabbers without giving examples. We have the sophisticated ones, but we have those that are not so sophisticated. Now, the sophisticated ones are the ones who are very connected. They have power. And they will use that power to displace innocent landowners. So you have come in your 2 weeks, bought a property, you're back, no activity whatsoever. Then you come back after 10 years and you cannot locate your piece of land, and the first thing you say is, the government of Uganda is bad. You have a duty as an owner, just like you have a right under the Constitution, Article 26, to own the property. You also have a duty to protect the property.
Thank you so much. I see that we are running out of time, and actually we have clocked the 1 hour already programmed for the show. But we shall do just extra 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, and we shall call it, a day. Now, mine is a question. Recently, I was reading, in the news of a lady, particularly in Canada, who bought land from this land vendor in Uganda. She went back, and when she reached Canada, she was informed that the same piece of land she bought has again been sold to someone else. At that point, what is the remedy available for her at this time?
One, of course, I will have questions. Had she transferred the property? Let's assume she had transferred the property. I would advise her to engage a professional, an advocate, any reasonable advocate will first ascertain the status of the land. Do the search and immediately go to the ground, see what is there. Now, if you do a search and the property is still in her name, because usually they quickly transfer fraudulently, I would advise that she lodges a caveat. Now, a caveat is an interim, please note, a caveat is an interim measure. It is not a permanent solution. Did she say that the grabber also transferred, or that wasn't mentioned?
That wasn't mentioned.
Let's assume that the grabber also transferred. Even where they have transferred, she can still lodge a caveat. For as long as she can demonstrate that she has interest in the land, either legal or equitable, she can lodge a caveat. Secondly, if they have transferred, we have administrative remedies and we have the court. Administrative, she can immediately apply to the Office of the Commissioner Land Registration to have the title cancelled. In that same application, it is by way of letter, it's not complicated. The professional engaged should know what to do. They will request the commissioner to also put a commissioner's caveat. And this professional should immediately take both civil and criminal steps or action. Criminal, report to police. She doesn't have to be here. No, a complaint can be made to police on her behalf. This is fraud. The complaint can be made to police and a civil suit can be filed. We have injunctive reliefs. The professional should be able to apply for an interim order and subsequently a temporary injunction. register the order on the register, the lands register. Do not stop at getting the order and you keep it in your offices. For the my brothers and sisters, the advocates, it is not enough. I actually saw a signage somewhere. This one took it a notch higher. They even put a signage with the details of the court order. It has become that necessary. So once they have done all this, they should keep pushing. In whatever you do, no matter where you are, make sure you do not lose possession. Because in court, the first thing they're going to ask is whether you're in possession. Whether you lost it innocently or not, are you in possession or not? So possession is key. That's why these land grabbers go for the possession. Displace you, take over immediately. So you must fight for what is yours. This is an asset. This is a treasure. Fight for it. Land has so many advantages. You can't afford to lose it. You can't afford. This is your livelihood. You will pledge this land as security in the bank. Get money for development purposes. Then for all the absentee landlords who suffer this kind of consequence, immediately take possession of your land. It is no longer enough to brag that you have 100 square miles of land. What are you using that land for? Are you going to be buried with 100 square miles anyway? Develop that land while you're still alive. As soon as you die, you worked so hard. The people who did not drop one sweat are going to squander everything. So in your life, you would rather part with half of the assets, develop what you have, and even invest. You should have several investment options. Invest in treasury bonds. They are safer investments. Don't just look at 1 square mile. What are you using the 1 square mile for? You have 1 square mile, you have 10 acres developed. Then over time, you have squatters coming onto your land, occupying the other half. Then you blame the government of Uganda. You have a duty. Before you blame anybody,
You have a duty.
like I said, we are not here to point fingers. Reality check. Deal with it. You must do your part.
Well, you have heard for yourself, and my take home is always and always engage registered professionals. Check authenticity of every document. And in the chat, we see Mukisa Cyrus thanking the farm for helping him and assisting him after he had bought land with encumbrances. We appreciate you too, Mr. Mukisa Cyrus. Coming to you, Alfred, what are your take-homes and what are your parting shots? I see we have come to the close of the show, and we have about 1 minute.
Yeah, I think for you joining the call, my parting shots are use land in a sustainable manner, so that even when you are gone, your children, grandchildren will benefit from that same land.
Sustainability. Coming to you, Councillor Dale, in maybe 30 seconds, what are your parting shots?
Land is an asset. Engage professionals. Deal with the right information. Look for it. I will once again thank my team, the diaspora leadership and membership, and note that this is just the beginning. We are going to have several of these sessions talking about different aspects, not just land. So we look forward to engaging you further. Sorry, the 1 hour may not have been enough, but we are still available on other online, on other online forums. We are here to serve you. We are here to give you the necessary information. Yearn for this information. It will make a difference. Once you have information, it takes you at least 50% the journey in fighting fraud. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for those words of wisdom. I want to take this opportunity as the moderator of the show to thank everyone who tuned in, everyone who spared time to attend the show. We don't take this for granted, and we really wish you the best. We hope the show has been helpful to you. We hope we have gained information that will be useful to you when dealing with land management. From me and the team here, we take this opportunity to say good evening, good morning, and good afternoon wherever you are. Have a nice day. Thank you.